Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bridget Smith from NextGen Healthcare. Appreciate your patience while we get started. We are going to get started in about 2 minutes while you all log in. But again, thank you for your patience, and we will be kicking off in 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Bridget Smith, and I am from NextGen Healthcare, and I'll be moderating today's session, which is called Moving from Fear and Fantasy to Find Functionality, Leveraging AI in Behavioral Health. This session will be guided by a panel of experts who you see on your screen right now, who specialize in charting this new territory. And today they're going to be discussing practical ways to learn and apply AI into your day-to-day, as well as leverage it to innovate in your services. So before we get started, I have a few administrative notes to share with you. Everyone that is an attendee is on mute. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A panel, which is located on the right hand of your screen. We will address those at the end of today's presentation. Also, when the webinar wraps up, there's a quick two-question survey that will pop up on your screen at the end of today's presentation. If you don't mind taking a few minutes to complete that survey, which will allow us to improve our content and our processes moving forward. And now I'd love to introduce you to our amazing women-led panel today. First, we have Tanya Long, who is the Chief AI Sherpa from Quantum Crow Advisory. We also have Mari Savickas, who is the Vice President of Public Policy with Chime. And we also should have Stacy DiStefano joining us today. She will be on in a few minutes, and we'll just hop into the conversation seamlessly. I'm sure if you know Stacy, you know that she will just fill in the blanks as soon as she gets here. But I'm going to get us started today. So Tanya, there's a lot of buzz about AI and use cases across every sector. When we think about technology and behavioral health, sometimes it's not considered to be the most innovative field. I think about AI for improved back office efficiency and AI for patient engagement, also AI helping in direct care for staff with charting, et cetera. With so many options and so many new to the majority of leaders, is it necessary for leaders to feel like they have to become an expert in AI?
Well, I've got good news. The answer to that is absolutely not. I like to think about it as leaders being AI fluent. When I was thinking about this last night, I hope the conversation around AI, everything, stops being a conversation in about 18 months, because AI will just be how we work, how we do business. But for now, it is a conversation, and people are, everywhere I go, people ask this question, do I need to be an expert? You need to be an expert in your domain, and you need to understand how AI works. You don't need to be an expert at the technology at all. It's kind of like driving a car. Everybody knows, we're all adults here. Everybody knows how to drive a car. Everybody knows how to accelerate, how to brake, the rules of the road signs. And then I thought, but it gets a little more technical than that. I drive an Airstream. I pull an Airstream on the weekends. So I have to worry about high winds. I have to worry about steep downgrades, or when I fishtail, which has only happened once, but it was really scary. An F1 driver is going 125, 150 miles an hour. They have to worry about things with their vehicle I don't even know exists. Those are really special corner cases. But for the majority of us, we know the basic same fundamentals, and we can get from here to the grocery store, or from here to our vacation destination hundreds of miles away, really, really effectively. So you do not need to be an AI expert at all to be very effective with leading and managing and, frankly, utilizing the technologies that are evolving.
Love some of those analogies that you use, and I agree. I think it'll at some point just be like riding a bike, another one that I love. We have Stacy with us.
Hey, sorry about modern technology here. Maybe AI can fix the future for us.
No problem. AI is going to fix the future for us.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to shift to Mari. So across behavioral health, provider organizations are working to integrate technology tools for efficiency and creativity, but boards and leaders want to ensure that technology is used responsibly in regard to privacy and HIPAA, et cetera, a lot of those concerns. How can leaders actively contribute to shaping AI policies and practices within their organizations without slowing things down?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And, I'm going to start with, I always like to start with a story, but first I have to say, Tanya, I have a little bit of camping envy here because I don't have an Airstream, and I've always been wanting one. But instead I'm going to get a treehouse in my backyard, and that's where my camping will occur. So I was actually going to start with a treehouse analogy. So as I look out the beautiful backyard, my kids want a treehouse. And I said to my daughter, I was like, well, you and my husband went to Lowe's. What did you buy? Bought some stuff. And they're like, well, did you buy the cement? No. So it's a great analogy for AI. You can't just build the roof without the foundation, right? You wouldn't just start shingling a house, before you put the windows on. You got to hang the windows. You have to have doors. So you're going to start from the ground up. And it's similar, right? You're not going to just go eat the whole apple whole tomorrow. And just like Tanya said, you don't need to be an expert necessarily in like hanging windows or roofing. You have some contractors for that, but you're going to figure this out. But you are experts in your own domain, right? So you would start with perhaps a governance committee, right? You already know you handle data. You know that patient data is the most lucrative commodity that you have aside from your patients. And so you want to start there. You want to think, governance committee. I don't have a governance committee. Okay, all right. So the network tell you need a governance committee. So you need to think through, how do you handle your data today, right? What are the rules of the road that already apply for technology, data, patient care, electronic movement of information, and start to apply those very same principles to AI. So it's another tool in your arsenal. And the government, they're not going to just say, oh, well, it's AI, so you don't have to worry about privacy and security. Said no regulator ever. So what you would start to do is think, okay, I have data, I have to protect it. I have to, use my rules of the road like HIPAA, and like I got that hammer in my toolbox, and okay, security, better lock the doors, right? I mean, there's just all these things you have to think about. So just start to think about, who would I put on my governance committee? Who are the people already involved in touching your patient information? Maybe it's your general counsel, risk officer, privacy, if you're a larger CIO or CTO. somebody in your organization, even if you're really small, has to think through those major pieces. So again, I guess my message is the rules of the road still apply, whether it's AI or some other whiz-bang futuristic technology.
Absolutely. So Tanya, for thinking about the work of provider organizations where until recently technology was rarely discussed, what sources would you recommend helping leaders what sources would you recommend for helping leaders understand the landscape of new AI technology? Are there any books or podcasts that are helpful, or should executives consider hiring a tech consultant?
When people want to learn about AI, I encourage them to treat learning about AI like dieting. It's only going to work if it's a lifestyle change, right? Does that make sense? So, so I've done a fair amount of dieting in my life, and it's really got to be something that fits with what you enjoy. So I talk with people in terms of where do they find themselves hanging out with knowledge. Is your guilty pleasure Twitter? If you hang out on Twitter, there are plenty of content producers on Twitter in your domain who talk about policy, who talk about behavioral health, who talk about, oh, and we lost her. Did we lose the whole thing? Are we there?
We're here.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you. So if your guilty pleasure is Twitter and that's where you find yourself when you're stuck.
No, I'm here. I just can't. Yeah.
When you're stuck at the car wash or when you're picking up your kids at the school pickup line, you should be creating feeds for yourself in Twitter where you can run into that information. I'm a LinkedIn junkie. I'm always on LinkedIn. So not surprisingly, I follow several friends and am now really good friends with several people on LinkedIn where I have content that's feeding me all the time with new information in the AI domains that I'm interested in. If your game is more like pretty academic things that are longer, more thought-provoking type articles, more long-form content, Medium, Substack is really coming on strong with a lot of good writers that are thought-provoking. Subscribe to several of those writers. I think that those environments that you find yourself spending your free time in, those are fantastic ways to become a continuous learner in this ever-changing world. I also highly recommend for people to subscribe to 3 newsletters. And I prescribe 3, but just get 3 newsletters into your email feed. The 3 that I prescribe are 3 very different newsletters. One is called The Neuron. It almost, and you got to give it a chance, it's very cartoonish. There's a cat that is the kind of the mascot for The Neuron, but it's high quality, very easy to digest content. And all 3 of these cover the range. It covers like what's happening in industry, what's happening in M&A, what's happening with new products coming through. I think all 3 of them have a little box for products that are coming out, and you go, wow, I think I want to try that. That looks neat. So The Neuron is daily. The second one is Matt Wolf's what is it called? Future Tools, I think, and it's twice a week. And the third one is Zane's Superhuman. Matt, all 3 of them also have a Twitter feed. Matt's super technical. And Zane is more of his Superhuman one is more, how would I describe it? He's more newsy. But if you subscribe to these 3 newsletters, and I'll put them in the chat during the next person's answer. If you subscribe to newsletters and they're hitting your inbox and you take 5 minutes a couple of times a week and just hit one, you will be really well informed on what's going on, and you'll get curious. And sometimes you'll go in a rat hole and you'll start exploring something, and you'll know more than 90% of your friends in the office. And it will make you a well-learned person on AI. That's my answer. Oh, and yes, you should hire a consultant. My number is 408-218-5762. But in all sincerity, because your final question, as I recall, was, should you hire a consultant?
Mhm.
This is all very new. It's all very process driven. And at the time, and it is so broad and so ever changing. And I do recommend, when you're ready to move forward with initial pilots, with thinking about how to bring AI into your initial processes, I think it's worth the time to bring someone who's done this, who has the mind share of having done this across multiple industries and companies and verticals. I think it's worth that investment to bring someone in to think out loud with you about what you're considering. So I do think that's time well spent.
Yeah, I love your recommendations, especially some of the content, kind of similar to your first answer. Like, it's just keep looking for where you're already spending your time for some of that information. And
AI is not a one and done. That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's going to keep evolving. And I love the recommendation for the Neuron. I love cartoon content, so I will be subscribing to that after this call. Mari, from your regulatory compliance point of view, does it make you wince when I say, or is it okay for BH providers to essentially go shopping online or browse for tools and solutions? Or what do we really need to guard from your vantage point as they're looking for tools to implement into their day-to-day, and especially in while delivering services?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's absolutely perfectly acceptable is to poke around. Some of the things that we would maybe recommend, just going back to some of the things that Tanya said, is, you may not know where to start, right? And so I obviously have a more policy-focused lens. I mean, it may not be obvious. I work in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm a registered lobbyist. You might say, oh, what do lobbyists know? I'm the eyes and ears on the ground for my members who are CIOs and other C-suite executives. But there's a lot of places that we pull information. My job every day is to read and decipher a ton of information, a lot of it very technical. So what I tend to advise our members on is, like, go talk to your neighbors, right? Who is your largest referral? Who is sending you the largest number of referrals? Maybe go talk to, like, the acute. They might have already dipped a few toes or maybe an entire foot in water regarding AI. They may have some great advice for you. I'm all about grabbing, like, the coffee or the virtual coffee and just asking, like, a lot of people would love to be called upon and say, oh, could you tell me a little bit more about you and, your expertise? I mean, who doesn't want that? So just establishing that relationship. One of the things that is a little bit of a side note, but one of the things that we worry about here is making sure there's not going to be a digital divide with AI. And so these academic medical centers, unless you're close to one and you really can benefit from that care, if you're in, say, like a rural part of America, we as a healthcare sector have to make sure that we pull everyone forward. So it's fine if you're not right next to an academic medical center, maybe call over there, right? Maybe you see if your friend's friend, or you can even contact me and I'll give you the CIO's phone number. But they want to, they're going to share information with you, and some of them are really going big and hard into AI. But that's what I would call the bleeding edge members. It's not the middle of the pack, okay? So grab coffee. In my world, we look at Politico. Politico is it's an expensive newsletter to purchase. However, you can get it for free after 10 a.m. Yay, exciting. And it's high level, right? It will prepare you as you go into your executive meetings, like just high level stuff that does have, it's focused on government, but it totally gives you like the kind of like big picture, and it's very quick read. Other things I would say is maybe LinkedIn, LinkedIn's amazing. Maybe for me though, sometimes I forget to always go in every single day. That's just me. And so I might set up a Google alert, right? You might want to Google alert on a very specific topic within AI. It will give you a digest, either weekly or daily, and you can just siphon through that and be like, oh, I don't need any of this today. Or, oh, that one looks really interesting. try looking at too, Harvard Business Review, MIT. I mean, they're actually business-focused journals that are really helpful. And in terms of, what, like going shopping, you might say, okay, I've got all this information. Where do I go now? Oh my golly, it's a lot. So begin the reading process. There's also events you can go to. Chime co-hosts the event Vive. Vive is going to be in Nashville this coming, I guess for 2025. We just had it in Los Angeles. We host it in conjunction with an organization known as Health, HLTH. But it's a vendor that has a bunch of the digital health vendors. So one way to get in for free is to become a speaker. Just a little tip there if you want to join for free, come in for free. And if that's, and if coming to a conference is outside of your budget, and I know that that is outside the budget for many healthcare providers, there's things that you can do for free, like, again, troll through like some of the free LinkedIn training. That I've seen some posts like a list of 10 free trainings. LinkedIn's got free training. There's so many things that you can do to really unpack this. And again, like there's probably like 3 webinars like this where you're just going to listen. I mean, free is great. Just know the source of truth, know who the information is coming from. And then you can start to really build out your list of vendors. And the last thing I'll say is like, try to figure out like what's your biggest problem that you're trying to solve, right? If your biggest problem is, let's just say RevCycle, I'm sure we're going to get into this, Tanya, right? Like you're going to look at your business and say, this is where I'm really spending a ton of money. I have a ton of inefficiency, or I need to do some savings. The administrative side of healthcare is where AI is really moving. And so if you just pick one of those, again, try not to eat the whole apple whole. So like, I'm going to focus on RevCycle, or maybe it's Para, whatever it is. And maybe just try to focus on learning a little bit more about the vendor space in that particular area before you try to take off, how to swallow the whole apple whole. So just a few thoughts, and I'll stop there.
Some great points. I mean, there is an AI solution for everything, every problem you could have, it seems right now. But I think that's a good point to prioritize what those problems are and then see what you can leverage and start small. It's a great takeaway. So Tanya, what are some simple ways that behavioral health leaders should be using AI today to make their lives and their jobs easier?
I'd like to just say everything, but you're probably looking for something a little more specific. Well, Mari mentioned the administrative piece, and I think that's the easier, low-hanging fruit. Of course, in the behavioral health industry, we have HIPAA to be concerned with, but still, I think it's the mechanical piece that we are starting with on the back office side. Tremendous value, and there's patient value in that. We're all consumers of healthcare and general healthcare benefits, and the fixes that we apply to the administrative, to billing and scheduling, it's a beast. It is a beast on the consumer recipient side. So fixing that on the behavioral health side is going to have so much benefit for the patients. I think that there's so much good to be done, and by alleviating those challenges, we are also going to alleviate employee satisfaction and elevate those employees to give them a chance to do more interesting things, to allow them to creatively be able to do more for the patient. So clearly the administrative side, I could talk about that for hours. That's not the really interesting thing, I think, for the most of the people on this call, because I think we all understand that. I think the more interesting stuff is around the data analytics that is starting. I think wave 2 is on the clinical side, pattern recognition and using mass amounts of data, and what AI can do both at a in my business terms, I'd say a portfolio level, but to take mass amounts of data across populations, I think that's the more medical term, across populations, and use that data in diagnostics to understand what's happening with trending, and use that both broadly in populations and then at an individual level to be able to look back in history. So that's two different dimensions, to look at communities and populations, and then to look back in an individual patient's, lengthy history. I'm a 16-year type 1 diabetic, and my endocrinologist I've been with her for 12 years, and she can barely remember last quarter's visit. So to have those two dimensions of data sets on any given condition and be able to use those to create customizations, customized patient treatment plans is going to give us ways to service patients that we have just not had the ability to do in the past. So I really think that where we're going to get to in terms of real patient care and being able to treat the patient with, I'm going to say universal, but universal data at a really individualized level is going to be amazing. And then I think we're going to have better patient engagement, because we're going to be able to collect data from them in a simplified way at a more granular level, because of the way we can automate data collection and get them more involved in their own care. And I think that's going to get them more involved and more accountable in some of these more chronic conditions. And I think that will lead also to better outcomes longer term, especially with these I already said chronic in a medical way, conditions that go on for years. And I think patients don't feel like they're part of their solution, and bringing that into play with AI, with mobile, putting these devices to work with AI tools, and those feeding into the providers is going to be game changing for the majority of the population.
Yeah, I think there's so much fear. I shouldn't say so much. There's two sides of it. There's a lot of
there. Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, but there's a lot of, I think what your answer, there's a lot of hope too. Like, how is this going to transform the way our healthcare is delivered, as well as, make even day-to-day life a little bit easier for us moving forward, and really leverage technology to our advantage to enhance our lives rather than distract us from living our lives.
It's true. It's true. I'll use an example. I mentioned I'm a type 1 diabetic, but I think this applies in the behavioral health world, and I think it makes it real for people. But I've been talking with the diabetes community. It's very personal, because it's about what you eat, and you get annoyed because it's like you're always being picked on for what you ate. And what we're finding in some of the research is that people don't feel picked on by a machine. So if we turn it into insights, what we're finding in some of the research is when insights say your blood sugars have spiked 4 out of 6 days after breakfast, insights coming from the phone are based on blood sugars, and I think the same would apply to behavioral health type indicators, are taken less personally. And patients providing details requested by a machine, patients are willing to give up more information and not feel like they're being persecuted. We are in a culture where we've always got our cell phones in our hands, so people are more accustomed to that, and they will give up more details more readily because they don't feel like they're being judged. That's the word that's coming up more and more often. I think in behavioral health, it's the same way. People guard their details. So AI, I think, is going to be a bridge for more data to be passed through to the provider by the technology, because people are willing to do that because it's not embarrassing. Over a long-term relationship, you build a relationship between the provider and the patient, and people don't want to be judged, but they will give it to the phone. And I think that's going to be a remarkable way that we have better data, better analysis, and better outcomes as a result.
Yeah, it's less personal, but in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Because I don't remember what I ate last Tuesday for breakfast.
Exactly. Shifting gears a little bit, maybe going a little more broad on this, and this is for the two of you, Tanya and Mari, whoever wants to start. But what trends have you observed on how AI has transformed other businesses, and how can we apply that as behavioral health providers? It's on the broad side.
I mean, I'm certainly no, deep expert on AI. I am an expert on policy. And so, typically healthcare, I'll say this, has lagged other industries in so many different ways. I mean, so many different ways. You can just look at the movement of data, the standardization of data, the data segmentation and behavioral health is so hard still. I mean, compartmentalizing this data through the break glass, features and making sure you're not sharing information inappropriately, compartmentalizing, and then you layer that on top of like so many other issues, like trying to treat the person as an entire human being, not just a head apart from the body. There's in the payment parity, we can go down like the whole rabbit hole of problems with healthcare and when it comes to mental health, behavioral health. And we're just so behind on technology. I mean, that's my area of expertise. So healthcare is often behind, and there's so much promise to what Tanya is saying about some of the clinical use cases. It's going to improve access to care, but I think you're going to see other industries move ahead faster. I mean, you just have, right? You have, I mean, I'm not the one who's going to get behind an autonomous vehicle, but you've already seen it, right? You have AI in your car right now. I mean, you wouldn't even believe the things, you just start typing into your search and it auto-populates your information. So we already actually have AI quite a bit in our life, and if you have any search engine, probably like Bing, or you're gonna find that there is a generative feature in there, and some of you may have already played with it, and if you haven't played with it, that's like a nice, like, again, dipping a pinky toe in the water to see what it's like. Or maybe you want to pay for the ChatGPT 4 version. I think it's like $20 or $30 a month. So we actually have it in all these other areas of our life, and it's actually already being used. It's a generative feature that's really like the breaking, kind of like bleeding edge. So I think there's a lot of sectors that are ahead of us. Now, just not to say that we're like the furthest behind, but you can also look at like natural language processing. There's so many pieces that are coming out, and the bar graph, like the line is going up, right? And you can just take a look at some of these, like, and see, there was a time when you couldn't just type into your browser, like starting to type a search that you want to make, and it wouldn't auto complete your sentence, right? Or your phrase. And that natural language processing is now here, and it's going precipitously up. So that's being used by so many different sectors. And healthcare we're getting there, and there is so much promise when it comes to the clinical use cases. It's just that it's going to take us time to get there, and the cost to use these tools is very steep in some cases. I know that some of our members, again, what I would call bleeding edge, can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to, and I'm sure Tanya can school you on like where to start, to take a bite of the apple. But we're making like decent headway. And if you just, again, do a little bit of searching, I think The Economist just came out. There's a paywall on it, and I can't get into it, but there's an article out today that talks about, healthcare and AI. There's so much ripe with potential, and so much we can learn probably from other sectors, but we're like on the upward trajectory. We got to follow the rules as we go. So I'll let you jump in here, Tanya.
Okay, I'm going to talk about two that I haven't already talked about, because there's a lot I've talked about that I'm not going to cover, but I'm going to talk about access to healthcare, and I'm going to talk about the business of healthcare. I'll talk about the money part first. Healthcare is a business. We'd like to think it's just making people more healthy, but it also has to pay for itself. And part of that's resource allocation. And there's a lot of data around who's where and who's doing what. But I think having the right people at the right place at the right time, and then predicting that, it's hard. It has really been hard. And so I think in business, we've been increasingly over the last 10, 12, 15 years been making better and better data-driven decisions. I think we're positioned well in industry to know where we want to push AI next for data-driven decisions. I think in behavioral health, there's big opportunities to use AI to analyze treatment efficacy and to look at resource allocation, two separate things, but in the running of the business and in supporting decisions about both facility-based healthcare and provider support. I think there's a lot of value in the data that AI can manage and present predictively and real time, so that resourcing is solid, so that proof points around what to build and frankly what to not deliver. You know, I think especially in behavioral health, you know, you get roped into keeping things that are no longer necessarily the best things to keep, but it's hard to spin them down because people say, but I need it, when you know, what you actually experience is that it's no longer the best treatment. And to have those results and be able to prove that and say we need to move on to new modalities, I think that decision support with AI is going to be key to running the business of behavioral health. On the accessibility side, and I might ruffle a few feathers with this, but the business example I'd use is banking. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, and we went into the bank to present checks to be deposited. I had a little passbook when I was a little kid. I can't remember the last time I went into a bank. So, and 24/7, I can do what I need from my cell phone, of all things. The accessibility for behavioral health care is going to be dramatically improved with AI, and that may be bothersome to some people. My best friend is a family therapist, and we've had deep talks about coaching and counseling, two different things delivered by AI. But there's a large portion of this world that does not have access to therapy financially, and I think to be able to make resources available, both I don't know if I'm using the right words, it's not HIPAA certified therapy, but both certified resources for your clients as well as non-traditional models that are stair-step programs, if you will, for people who aren't yet in crisis before they get there. Or for my best friend, for her, it's a better use of her time to get someone who's already been groomed before they get to her, who's already been through some of the thinking processes before they get to more formalized counseling. So I think accessibility to treatment is going to improve, and the behavioral health care process is going to improve through what AI enablement will do for us because of the language models that are being refined and the very specific nature of those language models and how we're going to be able to groom them in the next year.
We have some exciting things coming out from NextGen Healthcare soon that we'll be excited to announce, especially to the behavioral health market soon. But I love some of the examples. I don't remember the last time I was at a bank either, and do everything through my phone. So it's interesting the way, like you said, those day-to-day things have evolved, and not just in the last year. It's been years in the making. So it's not necessarily new.
Yeah.
Less. Okay, I'm going to do one more broad question to the two of you to answer. I just wanted a reminder to all the attendees, if you have any specific questions you want the panel to cover, you can submit them in the question Q&A panel, and we can address those before the top of the hour. But I'll throw this last broad question out to the two of you. What is the most exciting or promising development happening in generative AI right now to the two of you, what's the most exciting and promising, and why?
I'll go.
You want to go?
I
Okay.
just mentioned the language models, and that's one of mine because I believe that across multiple industries and in particular for behavioral health, we are fine tuning these language models that's going to make it nearly indistinguishable from human interaction because it's going to be so specific to these particular verticals, and it's going to be exactly what you want, and even down to a company cultural profile level, because it has become so efficient for us to build these large language models to the specificity that we need. I think that is very exciting because of what we need to do and how we need to securitize this data and make it less accessible by the rest of the world. So I'm a nerd, so I do think that's very exciting because of what we can do with it. But the other one that for me is tremendously exciting was just released a couple of weeks ago. What you need to see is the bigger picture, but it's multimodal AI. Multimodal is when, and Mari knows what it is. Multimodal is when all the different forms of input can come together. It's video, it's text, it's images, it's all of them come together. And the way we saw that packaged on March 14th was the robot that OpenAI and Figure, who is a partner that OpenAI has worked with, launched, released, introduced to the world. We've had a lot of robots. We've been, I was on the factory floor at Nissan 25 years ago watching robots swing big arms to, put parts on cars south of Nashville, Tennessee. And robots have been a part of our lives for a long time. And I like to say that because I don't want people to be scared of how robots are going to evolve very quickly in the next few years to be part of our mainstream lives. But this Figure OpenAI robot was very lifelike in the fine tuning of its movements, how it was able to interact with a human figure standing. I think they were like in a kitchen, and they were interacting, and it was picking up things on a kitchen counter. It's remarkable how it can interact with and have commands from to do things. And it's just the beginning of how our lives will be simplified and changed. And we're looking toward a new world, and it's going to be very exciting. Mari?
Well, I guess I have two areas that are, I would say, really exciting. I mean, clearly that future world we're marching towards, where you're gonna be able to not replace the human, right? I think we're looking at like augmenting the intelligence of the human to help them facilitate better decision making. We're not trying to replace any of you, like, kind of thing. Who has kids, right? Or maybe doesn't have kids but watches Disney movies. Big Hero 6. I am your private healthcare companion, right? And like the little, like, he looks like the marshmallow, and he has buttons on him. I mean, that's like AI before we had AI. We don't think you're all going to be treated by health bots, but we do want the one thing that I hear constantly across the board from providers, and when I sit at the table in DC, I sit at the provider seat, is workforce. Holy smokes, workforce. You're shredded. You're pandemic shredded. You're tired. You've got nurses retiring early. Doctors don't, want to stay in the workforce that long. I mean, there's so many problems with workforce that it's hard to have these big, like, cerebral conversations about AI, right? When you're just trying to figure out what your staffing is going to be for tomorrow. Like, we get that. And so just know that there are efficiencies on the horizon coming. I want to read you a few statistics. I live in the world of statistics. Okay. According to Medical Economics 2022, a little dated, McKinsey, we've all heard about McKinsey, says that artificial intelligence could automate between 50 to 75% of manual work involved in prior authorizations. This is just one piece of the administrative burden that is soul-sucking in our industry, right? Just manual processes. So if you could squeeze out some of that spending, that extra superfluous, I think we've all spent time on the phone for a prior auth, right? And then apply that to some of these really amazing, like, you squeeze out the waste, and then you reapply it and start investing in some of these amazing models that Tanya's talking about. here's one more. One estimate pegs savings with AI, this is AI total in healthcare, is 5 to 10% of healthcare spending. That comes out to between 200 and 360 billion dollars a year. That is bananas. Those are big numbers, even in DC. They're big, right? So there is light at the tunnel is opening, right? You can start small and you can start reaping some efficiency for your workforce. You can augment your intelligence, and the future is bright. And I'll just end with I have a newsletter. It's not AI focused at all, but it's, before I forget, my forgetful brain, I'm just going to put it in here. It's free. If you want to know a little bit more about tech and healthcare, you can sign up and we'll put you on the distro list. You know, the future is bright. It really is.
That's awesome. We did receive the question. I think you both provided some really great resources and recommendations. So I am going to touch base with you to compile all of those to share with the team, because we did get that question and I want to make sure that everybody has that list.
I couldn't figure out how to put the newsletters in, so I was going to
Well,
send it to you later.
I'll think, and I will
Yeah.
send it out to everybody with the recording. But I think, Mari, you did the chime.
Certainly, you can get us at that. My team at that box. We're happy to try, and we also have an opioid task force too. So like, we really do think about behavioral health. That we had a personal story inside of our organization. A member lost his son to the opioid epidemic, and there's that whole element of behavioral health is like lays on top of this. So it's something that's like near and dear to our organization's heart. I don't purport to be a clinician or an expert in behavioral health, but I do know the policies pretty well. And so if there's anything that we can do to help connect you, whether it's getting that virtual coffee or figure out like, oh, what's going on with behavioral health in DC in terms of like a spending thing, like, you know, we're happy to try and help you, or if it's like point us in the direction of an AI resource. So let us know.
Well, I just want to thank the two of you for participating today. I mean, I just feel like the overall tone, it's so positive, which is really refreshing, because as we've discussed, there is a lot of fear around it. But I think what I'm really hearing from the two of you is to make it work for you in your day-to-day. I love the recommendation to figure out what your biggest problem is and how AI can help address that. And just, you know, it's an evolving thing. So there's going to continue to be information out there. Keep going to the same watering holes you already frequent to get that information. I'd love to see, if we did this a year from now, how much, you know, your answers may evolve. So we'll see.
I'm game.
Try scheduling that now.
Good.
Oh, we're close to the top of the hour, so I'll wrap up with everybody. As I mentioned, be on the lookout for the materials from today's webinar. I'll send out the recording as well as some of those recommendations that both Tanya and Mari made. And again, thank you, the audience, for spending time for us. Thank you for sticking with us through the delay. And Tanya and Mari, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. Really a great session. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye.